Yan. Okay. So again, for this session, we will discuss learning to be a better student, no? So basically, ano to learning how to learn. Mamaya makikita nyo. And it's a big part of yourself kasi parang we are now applying yung mga natutunan natin nung mga unang parts ng ating subject or ng ating course. Okay? So what are the learning outcomes? So first is explain learning and explain how it works in humans. Identify the parts of the brain involved in learning. Describe the importance of neuroplasticity and its implications to learning. Discuss the influence of metacognition and self-regulation in learning, and then choose and apply strategies to improve learning. So I guess na-tackle nyo na to kahit papaano siguro dun sa ano ninyo, Prof. Ed ba yun? Yung parang developmental psychology ninyo. So parang medyo review lang siya, no, in some regards, but this time medyo mas ano siya, mas on the perspective ng understanding the self and applying our learnings, no? So to learn how to learn. Okay, so first of all, learning. Let's define learning. Uh, learning, behaviorists define learning as a relatively permanent change in behavior as a result of practice or experiences. And then sa mga cognitive psychologists naman, define learning as a process that leads to change as a result of experience. And on a general term, learning is the acquisition of knowledge, skills, and attitude through experience. So ano yung pinaka-common denominator ng tatlong definition na to? Learning is all about experience, okay? And learning is all about change. So meron kang behavior, no? Or meron kang behavior ngayon or behavior dati. Tapos meron kang experience, and then dahil sa experience na yon, nagbago yung behavior mo. Okay, so that is basically learning. So yung behavior na yun, it can be as simple as touching a hot object, di ba? So yung mga bata, alam naman natin, very curious yung mga yan. So kapag meron silang nakitang object, no, let's say it's a steaming hot cup of coffee, tapos hahawakan nila, tapos nung nahawakan nila, napaso sila. So dahil dun sa experience na napaso sila, natutunan nila na wag nang hawakan yung mga cup na mainit. Okay? So that is basically learning. Okay? So that's the behavioral part of learning. But learning can also be kasi yung kanina ano yan yung touching or not touching a cup of coffee, it's a concrete form of learning. Ibig sabihin ng concrete form of learning, you're actually doing something. No, there is something na concrete on the outside. Now, meron din tayong mga tinatawag na abstract learning. Let's say, for example, you learn that the biggest organism in the world as of right now is the blue whale. Diba? So, blue whale is the largest organism. So, that is a learning. Dati, di mo alam yun. Ngayon, alam mo na. So, that's another form of learning. That's abstract form of learning. But the principle is the same. You have a prior knowledge or prior behavior, and then you experience something. In this case, may nagturo sa'yo na yung biggest organism is yung whale, and then nagkaroon ka ng change in behavior. Now you know that a whale is the biggest organism. So that's how learning is. So learning, it's all about change because of an experience. Okay? So clear naman tayo dun, no? So it's a transformational process that leads to personal growth and development. Learning helps the individual to adapt in the environment, and learning is a constant process. So learning, it's not just about the school, no? Hindi lang siya yung natututunan natin sa school, because learning is also experience, no, in our daily lives, 'di ba? Natututo tayo kapag meron tayong mga pagkakamali sa buhay, 'di ba? Let's say for example, yung mga dati niyong yung mga ex ninyo, 'di ba? Sigurado naman may natutunan kayo sa mga ex ninyo. Kung wala kayong natutunan sa mga ex ninyo, hindi ko na lang alam bakit wala kayong natutunan. Kasi yung mga yan, they are experiences, no? And it led to changes in your lives. So, sabi nga nila, lagi kang may natututunan sa lahat ng experience na nararanasan mo and sa experience na nararanasan ng iba. So, learning is something that we need to sanayin yung sarili natin para mas maging mas maging adaptable tayo sa environment. Okay? Kasi yung iba sinasabi nila, "Ay hindi, matanda na ako para mag-learn." Hindi, walang pinipiling edad ang pagkatuto. Natututo tayo everyday kasi 'pag 'di tayo natututo everyday, we stop living. At least in my experience or at least in my opinion, no? Once a person or once an individual choose to stop learning from other people's mistake and from their own mistake, then that person is naging stagnant na. Nag-stop na siya to learn and therefore nag-stop na siya in living. That's just my opinion. No? Kasi if you stop learning, there's no transformation. Di ba? And a sign of life, no? Yung sign ng life is in transformation, movement. Di ba? When you move, you are transforming. Nagta-transform ka in terms of your distance, in terms of your posture, and so on. So if you stop learning, you stop transforming yourself, you stop growing, no, and developing, then you're essentially you're essentially stopping your life. No? So that's how I view learning. Kasi nga, kaya siguro mahilig ako mag-aral kasi feeling ko yun yung ano, parang 'pag nag-stop ako mag-aral parang, bakit pa, 'di ba? Bakit ka pa mabubuhay kung mag-stop ka mag-aral? But of course, it's different for all of us, 'no? So hindi ko naman sinasabi na yun yung tama. What I'm saying is, ang ini-imply nitong transformational process ng learning is that yun nga, once you stop learning, you stop developing yourself. And that's not a good thing to do. Okay? So yun. So what happens in the brain during learning? By the way, if you have any questions, no, just feel free to ask in the comments, or you can on your mic and then ask away. Okay. So what happens in the brain during learning? So learning is a brain activity. Okay. Involved lagi ang brain sa learning. So learning new knowledge and skills every day keep the structures of the brain changing and increase its ability to learn. So the process of neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to change that involves the addition of new neurons, new interconnection between neurons, and the organization of information processing areas. So, whenever we learn, no, so basics ng brain. So yung brain kasi it composed of neurons. So yung neurons yun basically yung mga brain cells, and these neurons communicate with each other. Meron silang mga synaptic activities, no, neural synapses. So yung mga synapses na yun, parang yun yung information. Okay, pag nag-connect yung dalawang neurons, usually meron nakastore na information sa neurons na yon. Okay. So, hindi lang naman, for example, yung isang neuron, hindi lang naman siya connected sa isang neuron. Usually, yung isang neuron connected siya sa mga marami pang neurons. And whenever we learn something new, or whenever we teach ourselves something new, no, or whenever nagkakaroon tayong new information, no, ang nangyayari sa mga neurons natin is either nadadagdagan yung neurons natin, especially sa mga bata, or nagkakaroon ng mga bagong connections yung mga neurons natin. So the more connections na meron yung mga neurons natin, the more information na meron sa brain natin. And usually, hindi lang raw information ang meron sa brain natin. Usually, meron ding organization yung mga yan. So yung organization, basically yung priorities ng brain. Di ba? Ano ba yung mas kailangan tandaan? Ano ba yung mas kailangan na i-retain sa utak, tsaka yung mga bagay na hindi kailangan i-retain sa utak. Yun. So, nare-reorganize yan whenever we learn something new. So, ang tawag doon is neuroplasticity. So, neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to change. Okay? So, sabi nila pag matanda na daw, ay mahirap nang baguhin yung isang tao. Tama naman yun. No? Pero hindi naman imposible. Yung mga pinaka-malleable na brain usually sa mga children, but in adulthood, possible pa rin naman na magbago yung isang tao, especially kapag nasa 20s, no, 30s, pero pag nasa 60s na medyo mahirap na kasi nakaset in stone na usually, no. Mahirap kasi ang change sa buhay ng tao, especially kapag tumatanda na. But the point is, yung brain natin, whenever we learn something new, mas nagiging siyang organized, mas nagkakaroon siya ng connection sa bawat isa, and mas nagiging open pa siya, no, to learn something more from the environment. Okay. So again, learning is not only done in school. No, we can also learn from everything. We can learn from everything actually. No, from nature, from our work, from our job, no, from our family, our friends, and even from ourselves, di ba? So once we know something, no, about ourselves, no, we have this insight, no, ay ganito pala ako. So sa susunod, hindi ko na gagawin 'to. Parang ganyan. Or sa susunod, ito yung gagawin ko para mas maging maganda yung experience ko. Okay? So that's how learning is. Once you learn something new, you're actually opening up your brain to learn something more. Okay, kaya nga masaya natututo, 'no? Hindi lang naman sa school 'yan, again, 'no, akala kasi nila 'pag natututo school lang, hindi. Maraming mga forms of knowledge. May mga practical knowledge 'yan, may mga academic knowledge, and merong mga wisdom na tinatawag, yung pinagsasama yung both. So, 'wag tayong makadena or makulong do'n sa definition na, learning pang school lang 'yan, hindi. Okay. Sa mga business kailangan ng learning, 'no? 'Pag hindi ka natututo during your business, stint, kunyari nagbi-business ka ta's 'di ka natututo sa pagkakamali mo, sa pagkakamali ng mga competitors mo, or pagkakamali ng mga kakilala mo, hindi ka magiging successful na businessman. Ituturo ba 'yon sa school? Hindi. Yung hindi nila masyadong kunyari, if I'm not mistaken, 'no, kasi may mga ini-interview akong mga, at least in my experience, may mga ini-interview akong mga ano sila, sa business majors sila. Hindi masyadong tinuturo yung mga practical knowledge about business. More on ano yung mga business management courses, more on ano sila, technical, 'no? Hindi sila practical sa mga tinuturo nila. Kasi daw iba pa rin talaga 'pag ikaw ay nasa business. And hindi mo na masisisi yung academe do'n kasi businesses are very different from each other. Iba ang milk tea business sa hobby shop business, 'di ba? So hindi mo ma-apply yung same principle sa isang shop, tapos i-apply mo siya sa different na shop. So hindi mo talaga maano yun. It's really a practical knowledge, and that knowledge is something that you cannot teach in school. Also in education, 'di ba? Hindi naman kay eddoc major, pero sa education kasi hindi tinuturo yung how to teach talaga, or kung tuturo man yung how to teach is dalawang subject lang. Ang tinuturo is yung principles of teaching. Kasi different ways ang teaching, 'no? Merong mga iba't ibang klaseng, approach sa teaching. I-me-mention lang yung mga yun pero hindi sasabihin kung ito ba talaga yung tamang way. Kasi there are a lot of different ways. Okay. And the thing is, it's evolving. Yung mga principles na na applicable dati, no? Like for example, punishment, hindi na applicable ngayon. Kasi nga, nagbabago yung knowledge, nagbabago yung learning. Kasi every day we learn something new about children, about learning, no? About psychology. So, nagbabago talaga. That is why, as I've mentioned kanina, learning must be constant. Must be It won't end, 'no? Kahit tapos na kayong mag-aral dapat natututo pa rin kayo. Kasi once na sinara niyo yung sarili niyo sa pagkakatuto, sinasara niyo na rin yung sarili niyo sa mga possibilities na puwedeng dalhin ng environment natin, okay? So, the process of neural plasticity or changes in the structure and functions of the neurons in the brain usually happen in the cerebral cortex, which is the wrinkled layer of the brain. So yung outer layer ng brain natin dun po usually napupunta yung mga, natin, yung mga information na bago. So, cerebral cortex is packed with neurons and is responsible for the most sophisticated information processing in the brain. So, cerebral cortex yun yung 'di ba 'pag nakita kayo ng mga pictures ng brain, yung outer part, 'no, that is the cerebral cortex. So, cortex means bark, if I'm not mistaken, bark, alam niyo yung bark, tree bark. So, yun yung outer part ng cerebral. So, cerebral is brain. So, yun yung outer part ng brain, and usually dahil yun yung pinaka-last na nag-evolve, no, sa mga Homo, mga humans, usually parang doon yung parang sophisticated. So, yun yung mga complex processes. Kasi the more you enter the brain, for example, yung pinaka-midbrain na tinatawag, yung mga midbrain na yun o tinatawag na reptilian brain, present yun sa lahat ng animals, maliban pa sa atin. So, kasi yun nandun sa midbrain, yun yung mga basic processes, like for example, regulating sleep, regulating appetite, no, regulating the temperature of our body, and so on. So, yung mga yun, kahit yung mga simple na animals, yung mga mammals, reptiles, and even yung mga ibang mga smaller organisms, meron silang ganun. Yung mga humans, on the other hand, mas may nag-evolve yung brain natin. So, nagkaroon siya ng mga iba't iba pang layers. So, the more na lumalabas yung layer, no, the more na outermost layer yung brain, the more naman nagiging sophisticated yung function niya. So sa ng cerebral cortex, sila usually yung information processing and memory din. So although yung memory nasa hippocampus yung center niya, pero yung mga memories talaga, yung data ng memories natin, nakasave yan all throughout our cerebral cortex. And yung cerebral cortex is involved din siya in processing those information. Okay, so cerebral cortex plays a key role in human learning, thought, memory, and language. Kasi sa atin, mga tao, yung learning natin, it's not only practical. Hindi lang yung, for example, mainit yung bagay, hindi mo hahawakan kasi mainit, kasi nasaktan ka. Hindi lang ganun yung learning natin. Kasi mas complex yung learning natin kasi we can learn not via our own experience, but we can also learn via the experience of other people. For example, nakita natin yung isang tao na hinawakan niya, napaso siya. Hahawakan mo pa ba? Hindi na. No? Kasi alam mo na hindi alam mo na magkakaroon ka ng same experience. Okay, so mas complex kasi yung natin, yung ating processes. That's why mas sophisticated kumbaga yung learning styles natin. And meron tayong thought, meron tayong memory, and then lastly, of course, meron tayong language. So language is quite unique with human beings. Although yung mga ibang animals, meron silang mga sariling languages nila, but mas sophisticated yung mga humans, no? As far as we know. Kasi kung may argument dito paano natin nalaman na walang language yung ibang mga hayop? Kung meron man silang language, for sure di natin maintindihan 'yan. Kasi nga language nila di ba? But anyway, so ang sinasabi lang dito is yung ating brain or yung cerebral cortex natin is yun yung isa sa mga pinakaimportanteng part ng brain na involved sa learning. Okay? So if there's a damage in the cerebral cortex, particularly in the prefrontal lobe, yung banda dito, pag nagkaroon ng problem dyan, nagkakaroon tayo ng problem sa learning. Okay? Because learning is a complex behavior that is adopted by human beings. So, what makes us unique from other animals is that we have this what we call metacognition and self-regulated learning. So, yung metacognition, we have, di ba may thinking tayo, meron tayong cognition, meron tayong thoughts, meron tayong aware tayo. Di ba? Metacognition, on the other hand, is that we are aware that we are aware. We are aware that we can think. We are aware that other people can think. We are aware na meron tayong ability to learn. Okay? So that is metacognition. Ibig sabihin kasi ng meta is after or beyond. No? So beyond cognition. So meron tayong cognition, nag-iisip tayo, and alam natin kung paano tayo mag-isip. Nagets mo ba? Nagets mo yung metacognition? So it's a higher cognition. Okay? So yes, Ross. Yeah, tinaas niya lang. So that's how metacognition works. So the meta in metacognition refers to the higher order cognition about cognition, and metacognition is simply defined as cognition about cognition or thinking about thinking. Okay? Why is this important? Why is this something very special? This is special because we can adjust our ways, 'di ba? We can adjust our behavior to match our thinking style, to match our thinking, to match our ability. Okay? Kumbaga, aware tayo. So, meron tayong ability to become aware of our own level. And kapag aware ka sa level mo, parang sa games lang yan. Kung alam mo na magaling ka sa game na yon, ang pipiliin mong mode is yung hard mode or yung extreme. Di ba? Yung expert. Ngayon, kung may awareness ka na hindi ka naman ganun kagaling, o di normal or easy lang. Di ba? So sa metacognition about learning, no, we know how we learn or we know our capacity to learn. So therefore, we have the ability to adjust our behavior, adjust our environment para mag-match yung learning style natin dun sa gusto natin mangyari. Okay? So that is metacognition. So psychologist John Flavel identified two components of metacognition: metacognitive knowledge and metacognitive regulation. Metacognitive knowledge includes knowledge of one's own cognitive abilities, cognitive tasks, and strategies to complete the cognitive task. And then regulation naman refers how the individual monitors and control one's cognitive processes. So yung metacognitive knowledge, ito nga yung sinasabi ko kanina, yung awareness natin sa levels natin. And then metacognitive regulation is our ability to monitor, no, and control our cognitive processes. Kumbaga, alam natin na obserbahan yung sarili natin. Okay? Kasi hindi ka naman magiging aware sa mga cognitive abilities mo kung hindi ka aware or kung di mo sila ma-observe, 'di ba? So, metacognitive regulation is like that. So, once you know, or once you observed your cognitive knowledge, then you will have an awareness of that knowledge. So, dun ka magkakaroon ng metacognitive knowledge. Okay? So, and then Barry J. Zimmerman defined self-regulated learning as the process in which students systematically direct their thoughts, feelings, and action towards attainment of their academic goals. So, self-regulation describes a process of taking control and evaluating one's own learning and behavior. In simple words, self-regulated learning is a process of taking control of and evaluate one own's learning. So, anong ibig sabihin niyan? Anong point 'no, kung meron tayong metacognitive learning, kung meron tayong metacognitive, knowledge or regulation? The point here is we, uh, we have the sufficient information 'no, to assess and to do, or to assess ourselves and to achieve our goals. Paano 'yun? So, let's say for example, a student wants to become a best performing student. Let's say for example, president's lister or dean's lister. Yun yung academic goal niya, 'di ba? So since yun yung academic goal mo, no, we must direct no our thoughts, feelings and action towards attainment of that goal. Okay? So paano natin ma-direct yung thoughts, feelings and actions natin towards attainment of that goal if we are not aware that we have thoughts, feelings and action towards that goal? So doon papasok si metacognitive regulation, observing our cognitive processes. So, now that alam mo na for example, alam mo na ito yung thoughts mo about being an academic, ito yung feelings mo, no? Gusto mo talagang maging successful sa academic life mo. Then, ang gagawin mo is gagawin mo yung lahat, no? Para makuha mo yung goal na yon. Paano mo makukuha yung goal na yon? Yun nga, yung sinasabi ko, dahil alam mo yung thoughts mo, alam mo kung papaano ka, kilala mo kung sino ka, alam mo yung style mo, alam mo yung likes mo, 'di ba? Alam mo yung dislikes mo. Again, this is the reason why important na you understand yourself. 'Di ba? You have an awareness of yourself because if you're not aware of yourself, you're not aware of your styles, you're not aware of your likes, hindi ka aware sa mga dislikes mo, hindi ka rin aware sa goals mo sa buhay, 'di ba? Mahihirapan kang mag-attain ng goal. Kasi in the first place, hindi mo alam kung anong goal mo. 'Di ba? So once na nalaman mo na or na-understand mo na kung sino ka, na-understand mo kung ano yung style mo, na-understand mo kung ano yung likes and dislikes mo, madali na lang para sa atin na ilapat yung gagawin natin or gumawa ng plano, no, para ma-attain yung goal natin. Kasi alam natin kung sino tayo, alam natin yung strengths natin, alam natin yung weaknesses natin. So kung alam natin na weakness natin yung math, ay hindi pala applicable sa inyo dahil math major kayo. Let's say for example, aware tayo na weakness natin is, ano ba usually yung kahinaan ng mga math majors? English
English, sir,
ba?
English.
English, di ba? So let's say for example, aware ka na kahinaan mo ang English, either uh, magfo-focus ka dun or parang ire-regulate mo na parang, sige basta sasakto lang dun sa 1.25 or 1.5 puwede na, 'di ba? Dalawang ways kasi in approaching weaknesses. It's either you turn it to your strength or just ignore it, 'no, and then focus on your strength sa math nga. So, ako ang ginawa ko sa case ko, nag-focus na lang ako sa strength ko. Kasi waste of time, hindi, joke lang. Pero eventually naman natuto din ako sa math 'no. Konti lang, pero hindi pa rin ako marunong mag-mental math. Anyway, so 'yun, nagkaroon ka ng awareness 'no, sa skills mo, nagkaroon ka ng awareness sa strengths and weaknesses mo. So therefore, alam mo na kung paano i-a-address yung mga problems mo or yung mga concerns mo. So let's say for example in your case, dahil alam mo kahinaan yung English, let's say for example gusto mong improve yung English mo. So one way to improve your English is to watch foreign movies, watch English movies. Okay, manood lang kayo ng maraming foreign language, 'wag yung mga K-pop 'no, hindi Korean yung ano, hindi Korean yung gusto niyo matuto, English yung gusto niyo. So, manood kayo ng mga English films, 'di ba? Yung mga luma kasi yung mga bago ngayon pangit sila. So, yung mga medyo luma, panoorin niyo sila, okay? And then, matututo kayo dun and then dahil alam niyong malakas kayo sa math 'no, nag-e-enjoy kayo sa math, hindi niyo kailangan mag-effort sa math. Kasi nga nag-e-enjoy na kayo dun, eh, 'no? So, yung lahat ng effort ninyo puwede niyong ilagay dun sa English. Kasi nga do'n kayo feeling weak or feeling na mababa pa ang ano niyo, ang level ninyo sa English. Pero dahil malakas na kayo sa math and aware kayo do'n, hindi niyo na kailangan pag-effortan pa yung math, 'di ba? So, hindi natin magagawa ang lahat ng 'yon kung wala tayong metacognitive awareness of our knowledge. Okay? And dahil aware na nga tayo, na-address na natin siya, another thing that we have is what we call self-regulation. So kasama sa self-regulation is evaluating our own learning and behavior. So once na nagbasa ka na or nanood ka na ng mga films, meron din tayong ability to test ourselves. Mataas na ba yung level ko sa English or hindi? Kasi, kunyari, chinek mo o di nanood ka ng films, tapos after 1 month, after ilang films, chinek mo ulit yung ability mo sa English. Tapos nung pagka-check mo, feeling mo tumaas naman yung level mo. Dahil tumaas yung level mo, ibig sabihin yung planong ginawa mo of watching the films is effective. Therefore, pagpapatuloy mo yung panonood ng mga films na yon. 'Di ba? Bakit gano'n? Kasi you evaluated that it's effective. So therefore, kung effective, why fix something if it ain't broke? 'Di ba? So gamitin mo lang. Now, if you notice na parang kulang yata yung films, kailangan ko rin yata magbasa ng novels, no? And then, dahil feeling mo kulang yung films, o di magbasa ka ng novels, tapos eventually mag-shift ka bigla sa English major. De joke lang. Huwag niyo nang gawin 'yon. Second year na kayo. So, that's how self-regulated learning is. In we just kasi ang akala ng iba sa learning, we're just memorizing stuff. No, that's not learning. That's memorizing. Memorizing is the lowest form of learning, at least in my opinion. If you memorize something, magaling magaling ka 'no, magaling yung mga taong nagme-memorize. Kumbaga, kasing galing nila yung mga libro 'no, in retaining information. But that's the thing, books can retain information longer and even more accurate than human beings. So why pretend to be a book if there are books around? That's just me, okay? Kaya hindi ako nagme-memorize, okay? Ayoko nagme-memorize kasi makakalimutan ko din 'yan. So, learning on the other hand, learning is much deep, no? Mas deeper siya. Mas parang of course kasama ang memorization sa learning. But as I've said, it's the lowest form of learning because learning involves so much more. Learning involves your thoughts, your critical thinking, sometimes your feelings, no? About the subject, about the topic. So, learning is more of satisfying your curiosity. How does one work? Bakit ganito? Anong nangyayari? Bakit ganyan? No, in my case, as a psychology major, my prime motivation in learning is I'm just curious why the hell humans do this. Why are humans like this? Why are humans weird? Di ba? I don't know in your case kung paano ba yung parang driving force niyo, yung motivation niyo on learning. But you have that question. You have that general question. And answering that question, no, or the process of answering that question, that is basically learning. Okay? And you cannot answer something just memorizing things. So when you answer something, you are actually investigating every aspect of it. Okay? That's how we learn. Okay? And the good thing about humans are we have the ability to evaluate ourselves kung yung process of learning ba natin is effective towards achieving that goal. The goal is answering a question. So, and then kung magaling ka talaga mag-evaluate ng sarili mo, mas mataas yung chance na maging effective lahat ng ginagawa mo. Okay? So, in short, self-regulated learning is the ability of a person to first assess themselves kung ano ba yung strengths and weaknesses nila, saan sila magaling, ano yung ayaw nila, ano yung gusto nila. And second is to plan, no? Plan, knowing that information about themselves and applying that, kumbaga, plan to achieve the goal in considering their own strengths and weaknesses. And then third is yung evaluating themselves. Kung nakapag-learn ba sila ng something new or kailangan nilang baguhin yung plano nila. Okay? So that is a mark of a good academic person. So that is what we call self-regulated learning. Okay? So that's why I'm really hesitant no, whenever some students are asking me, "Sir, paano po ba mag-review? Paano po ba pumasa ang board exam?" Ang lagi ko sasabihin, "Magbasa kayo kasi yun yung effective sa'kin." Kasi mahilig ako magbasa, 'no? So, in your case, I don't know what's effective for you. So, that's why I'm really hesitant to do, tutorial 'no, paano mag-review kasi iba-iba tayo ng ways ng pagre-review, 'no? It really depends on who you are and what you want out of that activity. Okay. So, ask yourselves, next time na magre-review kayo, 'no, next time na mag-aaral kayo, na next week finals niyo na, ask yourself, 'no, who am I? What's my strengths? What is my weakness? No? What is my goal? Ano bang gusto ko mangyari? No? And answering that question, magkakaroon kayo ng knowledge about yourself. And now that you have knowledge about yourself in terms of your academic side of life, mas madali na lang para sa inyo iplano yung pag-review ninyo. No? And then kapag yung plano ninyo, isinagawa ninyo, pwede nyo observe yung sarili nyo kung ginagawa nyo ba yung plano ninyo. Tapos pag mataas yung nakuha yung grade, then ibig sabihin yung plano ninyo is effective. Kaya kung hindi nag-improve yung grade, di revise nyo yung plano nyo, tapos try next time. And then eventually makukuha nyo kung ano ba yung kung ano ba yung style of learning ninyo. Kasi iba-iba tayo dyan. Okay? So, nag-gets nyo ba yung self-regulated learning or self-regulation, metacognition, and whatnot? Learning how to learn.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, learning how to learn is basically know yourself, understand yourself, and then the rest will just come upon you. Okay? So with that, thank you for listening, and we will meet later for our last lecture. End ko lang ang recording.